So, have a bit of a bombshell here that wasn't really talked about much. Let me show you. This is from Mediaite. Internal memo reveals Trump campaign new election fraud claims were false all along. So, in other words, they knew they were lying all along. So let me just give you some of this. Former President Donald Trump's campaign was aware that some of its claims about fraud in the 2020 election were false, according to an internal memo that was just made public. The New York Times reported that the memo was released Monday night as part of a defamation lawsuit against the Trump campaign from Eric Cooper, a former employee of Dominion Voting Systems. The company has been the subject of a torrent of conspiracy theories and false claims regarding the 2020 election. Cooper, as well as Dominion and another voting systems company called Smartmatic, have all launched defamation lawsuits against proponents of those claims. According to the Times report, the Trump campaign crafted an internal memo acknowledging that its legal team's allegations against the Dominion and Smartmatic were false. The document was put together before the infamous November 19th press conference in which Trump lawyers Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani and Jenna Ellis pushed a series of insane conspiracy theories about the election, suggesting the campaign sat on its findings. From the Times, get this. Even though the memo was hastily assembled, it rebutted a series of allegations that Ms. Powell and others were making in public. It found that Dominion did not use voting technology from the software company Smartmatic in the 2020 election, that Dominion had no direct ties to Venezuela or to Mr. Soros, and that there was no evidence that Dominion's leadership had connections to left-wing Antifa activists, as Ms. Powell and others had claimed. It's currently unknown if Trump ever saw the memo, though the former president continues to falsely claim that he won the election, a claim that fueled the violent riot by his supporters at the U.S. Capitol. Okay, so the reason why this is such a bombshell, and it is that, is because they knew all along they were lying. If your own campaign drafts a memo that rebuts all the conspiracy theories, and then your campaign goes out there and promotes those same conspiracy theories that you just debunked, somebody's lying. Somebody's lying. And the question is, who knew, who didn't know, how involved was Trump, and what's really going on in his mind? So now, I mean, he's ramped it up ever since he left office. Every time he gives some sort of public speech, he leans into those conspiracy theories and at the very least implies them, if not outright promotes them. And so there was reporting from Jonathan Swan of Axios behind the scenes that at the last minute, Trump sort of sided with the people who were saying, we lost the election. So it seems like he knows he lost the election, but what is it? Some sort of emotional protection mechanism to go out there and pretend like he won it? Or is he just completely flat out lying every time he does it? He knows he's full of shit and he's doing it? But either way, without a doubt, there were dishonest actors from within the administration who knew it was false, but they were pushing it anyway. I mean, there was a split, but there were also some who were two-faced and were saying one thing behind the scenes and saying one thing publicly. And by the way, that's why some of these lawsuits have proceeded. It's super hard to get anybody on defamation in the U.S., but courts have already ruled that this lawsuit has merit and it can proceed, which means there's something there. And this seems like some pretty damning evidence when you know what you're saying is false, but you keep saying it, and in the process, it's ruining a reputation of a company. Now, by the way, understand something. I don't think we should have any private companies involved in elections. I think that that's a terrible thing. You want it to all be public infrastructure. You don't want anybody that has ulterior motives coming up with the machines or whatever. So I'm against private companies being involved at all. But having said that, the claims that they were making against these private companies were total bullshit. I mean, they literally were arguing that, like, Maduro was swinging the votes. What? Links to Antifa and Venezuela and George Soros, and they were like, that none of this is anywhere near true. So you can't just lie about them. Again, I don't like private companies being involved in elections, but just because they are doesn't mean you get to go out there and lie about them relentlessly. And by the way, I think the idea is they can prove material damages because they're saying, well, we're never going to be picked again to be used in elections because our reputation has been destroyed in ways that are totally and provably false and wrong. So that's why, might be one of the reasons why they have a case here. And also, I don't know, maybe there were other material damages, as in people associated with the companies who were threatened or, harassed or whatever it may be. But they knew, man. They knew all along. They knew. There are some dogmatic, crazy people like Sidney Powell who may have been convinced of her own bullshit, but there's plenty of people who were part of the administration, knew these things were false, but still went out there and pushed it anyway. In other words, they are brazen liars.